Hello and welcome to my latest speed paint video. In this video, I do yet another true crime character design. I didn't want to overdo these types of videos, creating them sparingly due to controversial subject matter and subjects being overly talked about, or they're just plain so disturbing. I am doing a requested character design from a friend of mine involving Peter Curtin, or the Vampire of Duesseldorf. Before I go on to explain who this German serial killer was, my intentions for this design is that this guy would be a fan character for The Boys, not the Fan Project Eastern Division, the canon series. This character is meant to parody Dracula as a comic book character. Whether it be published by Marvel or DC, I feel would be irrelevant. I realize this man would not be the only vampire in this world, specifically Princess Cassidy is the other one. Difference is, Cassidy wasn't created in a laboratory, while this man most certainly was. In the world of The Boys, for those who aren't familiar with the comic or the TV show, the superpowered beings were created by a company known as Vout, are known as Soups. And the leader of the group known as the Boys is Billy Butcher. He uses his teammates and himself to take out Soups because these superpowered beings have done horrific actions outside of the public eye. And this Dracula-based Soup is no exception. The Boys dig up information about this vampire Soup involving his proclivities and his crimes against regular people. This particular Soup had done other acts of villainy, such as devouring animals and torturing said animals, and Vout had tried to cover it up. Cassidy helps Butcher and Huey take out this vampire in a gruesome fashion. As it's obviously seen in the world of The Boys, it's always been gruesome fashion. Anyway, I utilized the mugshot photo of the vampire himself and having an outfit that makes him seem like a vampiric superhero, and Dracula's cape and wings are on the outfit. Moving on to the person that once existed in real life, Peter Curtin. Peter Curtin was born on May 26, 1883. Location of his birth is Mulheim am Rhein, German Empire. Peter's childhood was full of poverty and CA, and he was the oldest of 13 children. 2 siblings passed away when Peter was very small. Peter grew up with his many siblings cramped in a 1-bedroom apartment with his alcoholic, abusive parents. Curtin's dad frequently attacked his wife and children, especially when he was heavily drinking. He forced his children to watch as he drank and had sex with his wife. It's apparent this guy's standards are low and his actions deplorable and gross. Even more shocking and unsurprising, he was found to have been SAing his 13-year-old daughter, Peter's sister. After law enforcement discovered Peter's father's crimes, he was imprisoned for 18 months, which Mrs. Curtin makes an escape with her children. I doubt it fixed anything. I'm sure these things affected Peter as an adult, along with future crimes that Peter will commit. Or maybe Peter was rotten to his core and there wasn't anything truly redeemable about the guy. Even as a child, I feel his soul is a rotting animal carcass due to him attempting to drown a playmate in 1888. A local dog catcher that Curtin befriends hones his skill in torture and killing animals. Initially, he commits his first murder at age 9 by drowning one of his male friends. The deaths were ruled as accidents. At 13, Peter formed a relationship with a girl his age. Things were benign initially with Curtin, but eventually those innocent flirtations from the young girl becomes Peter wanting intercourse more and more. Being slighted from being rejected, Peter commits bestiality on animals, such as pigs or sheep. Yeah, that's really gross, due to being denied by this girl. He had also tried to force himself on his eldest sister, much like his father had done years prior. In 1897, he left school at his father's insistence. I don't really know how this man came back into Peter's life, but here we are. He obtained employment as an apprentice molder. Unfortunately, Curtin stole money from his employer, and so his life and so began his life of crime. Not only did Peter commit breaking and entry, along with unspeakable acts of a sexual nature, he was imprisoned for the time being, was released from prison in August 1899, and reverted back to petty crime. Curtin claimed he committed his first murder in adulthood in November of 1899. In his 1930 confession to investigators, he claimed to have picked up an 18-year-old girl from a town and persuaded the girl to go with him. There, he claimed to have engaged this girl in coitus, before strangling her into unconsciousness with his bare hands before leaving the girl for death. There was no records of this claim from Curtin. If this may have happened, it is likely the girl survived Curtin's attack. Shortly thereafter, in 1900, Curtin was arrested for fraud. The prison felt like a revolving door for Peter as he moves in and out of jail over petty crime, murders he may or may not have done, until his release in 1904. He was drafted into the Imperial German Army. He was deployed to the city of Metz in Lorraine. He soon deserted like the coward he was. After his escape from the military, Curtin continued crime, catching barns and haylofts on fire. With 24 more acts of arson, Curtin also got off on catching houses on fire. Since this man was a deserter of the military, he did get in trouble with the military police. He still continues his acts of destruction. Peter eventually begins to target young girls. His first murder was of a 9-year-old girl named Christine Klein during a burglary that happened on May 25th, 1913. He breaks into her house as the young girl sleeps. He came into her room, strangles and slashes her throat. Curtin finds a twisted form of ecstasy from killing the girl. He leaves the crime scene to Kulim, to drink in a tavern to overhear disgusted reactions from patrons about the death of Christine. Following the death, he occasionally traveled to Mulheim am Rhein to visit Klein's grave, not out of remorse, but personal excitement. And again, getting off on the whole thing. 2 months later, Peter committed burglary yet again, this time going to a house in Duesseldorf. He enters the room of 17-year-old Gertrude Franken. He strangles Gertrude, just like he had done with Christine, escapes, but something happened. That something is that Gertrude survives her brutal attack. Unfortunately, yet again, Curtin gets out of the grips of the law. Peter continues to attack women and girls. He attacks a middle-aged woman known as Apollonia Kuhn by stalking her. And Peter struck, he pounced on Kuhn, grabbing her by the lapels of her coat and drags her out of view, shouting at Apollonia to not scream, and proceeds to stab her with a sharpened pair of scissors 24 times. Although Apollonia had endured horrific injuries, much like Gertrude, she also survives. But yet again, Peter manages to escape. Man, this guy either is extremely lucky or unlucky. I don't know which. This next death was even worse than Peter Curtin's other deaths and attacks. I do not wish to mention what happens to a girl known as Rosa Oliger, another 9-year-old girl whose death was so brutal and disgusting. I can't find a way to describe it without incurring the wrath of YouTube. 5 days after attacking little Rosa, Peter attacks a male 45-year-old mechanic, Rudolf Scheer, stabbing the man 20 times. Unfortunately, Rudolf does not survive. Peter attacks more people a few times, attempts to drink victims' blood, akin to his vampiric nickname the press had given Peter, which was obviously the vampire or monster of Duesseldorf, around summer of 1929. He had continued these horrific attacks and blood-drinking attempts until 1930. His past crimes caught up with him, and police captured him, and he confessed to what he had done. He had admitted to 68 crimes, including 9 murders and 31 attempted murders. Peter made no attempt to justify the brutality he committed towards his targets. Peter admitted he was aroused at the sight of the blood and orgasmed whenever he saw the carnage of his doing. I could continue onward to Curtin's trial, but I've taken so many pages of my script, I'd be nearly an hour, and I ramble, so rather than forcing the audience to endure me going on and on about this individual, I might as well TLDR it and cut to his execution. Before the blade met Curtin's throat in a swift death, the murderer asks,
Tell me, after my head is chopped off, will I still be able to hear, at least a moment, the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures.
That statement was rather chilling. Pleasant dreams, everybody! Anyway, back to the subject of the character being drawn here. I tried to go for a pale, vampire-y character with wrinkles in the skin, dry lips to the point they are dehydrated, and just plain nasty looking. I hope I captured that. I still can't imitate Derek Robinson's art style, but I'm sure most would argue that I shouldn't try because I'm me. Since this is a requested true crime character design for a fan-created soup, and it was suggested by a friend of mine, he also came up with the name Troy from Transylvania, akin to Jack from Jupiter. Cassidy, as stated earlier, helps Billy and his boys take out Troy because Cassidy himself is a vampire, and to quote Highlander, there can only be one. Thank you for watching this latest true crime character design. Don't forget to like, comment if you can, and subscribe, and thanks again for watching. Bye!
It's caught in the crossfire.